Hello, and welcome to the Jim Ruff Show. Today, my oldest and best friend, Don Miller, is here to help me articulate something around the Wise Democracy Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. I'm going to be going at the end of September to a mock constitutional convention in Louisville, Kentucky. I guess it's sponsored by the Coffee Party. And I'm very excited about it. And so I wanted to create a little bit of an opportunity to explain this amendment or explain what's going on. And Don graciously helped me said he's going to help me do that. So you are the guest host today, and I'll be the guest. And maybe we could talk about the Wise Democracy Amendment.
Sure. And thanks for the honor of doing this. Jim, you and I have known each other a long time. In fact, we go back to 1970.
Yeah.
And at that time, you were a young MBA working in the corporate world, and you segued through a few different companies. And I know that in the early 80s, you discovered an approach to helping groups that were really struggling with problems that seemed impossible.
Yeah.
To get past that point.
Yeah.
And to break through and achieve results beyond anything they ever imagined.
Yeah.
And that method has come to be called dynamic facilitation.
Yeah.
And because of the exciting results you got, you actually left your job
Right, yes.
to try to take this to the world.
Yeah.
And since then, you've made your living conducting seminars in dynamic facilitation.
That's right.
And I know there are people all over the world now that are catching on and are very excited about dynamic facilitation. But we're here today to talk about society's breakthrough.
Yes.
And that breakthrough for you is in the form of an amendment to the Constitution.
Yes.
And I'd like to know how you made that transition, not a transition because you still do dynamic facilitation, but how did a constitutional amendment idea arise out of your background?
Thank you. Well, the principles of dynamic facilitation are that if we have big problems and impossible to solve problems, that we ought to be applying creativity to them. And so in the seminars, smart people come, and as a way of demonstrating how dynamic facilitation works to help people do that, we tackle big issues, big impossible issues like war, and peace, and healthcare, and corporate takeover of democracy, and so forth.
Like, might this be things that within the group there might be strong disagreements to start with?
Strong disagreements, things that people care about, things that they feel unempowered about, nothing we can do about this,
right.
kind of things. And I say, okay, well, let's use this process and get creative and collaborative and see if we don't have some shifts and breakthroughs. And so people do. They have breakthroughs, they have shifts. And then they go away, they practice the skills and then they go away. And I'm sort of left with these marvelous insights over a period of time, and they're just kind of all coming together for me. Mm-hmm. And it was one night, May 9th, 1993, I just exploded out of a chair. I was actually watching television, kind of, and I saw how they all came together.
So all these other people have been to one seminar, but you've been to lots of seminars.
I've been to lots of seminars.
And all of a sudden you saw the big picture.
I saw the big picture, how it all comes together. So, and it came together at the time in a constitutional amendment. And it's real, I thought I could write a book. I thought I would tell people. I flew to Washington, D.C. I just thought I'd tell people, and they'd say, thanks, Jim. We really appreciate this. We'll take it from here, That didn't work.
Well, I can share with you.
Oh, you were there.
I can share with you that when we talked and you told me, Don, I've got this great idea that's going to save the world, and you told me what it was, I just went, my friend is crazy. He's lost it. But it turns out I was wrong. I'll admit it, I was wrong. So what happened?
Well, we have some great stories to tell about prowling the halls in the Capitol, but basically that didn't work. So I thought I'd write a book, and I wrote this book, Society's Breakthrough, Releasing Essential Wisdom and Virtue in All the People. And I started this TV show to try and get the word out. And I was really pretty wrapped up with the idea that it really needed to be an amendment to the Constitution at the time. And I still kind of think that. But, and my thought was that people would be convinced and then this movement would spread because people would see how important this was. And frankly, that didn't happen. And so the question became, well, how does it happen that people get it? And so I shifted more into demonstrating how it could work.
Yeah, were people saying, we can't mess with the Constitution,
Oh,
things like that?
They were just mad. It's funny. I was saying, here's how we can solve these problems that you're worried about. And they were mad at me for bringing it up. And I wasn't very skilled at talking about it then. I'm better now. But yeah, we can't change the Constitution was one of the reasons to get mad.
Yeah.
Strange. It was strange. And I spent a lot of time thinking about what does it take to get a new idea into society, for people to accept it. It took me on an exploration of other new ideas and how does it happen,
Well, Jim, it must have been hard for you to hear that rejection. I mean, I sat in one meeting where you presented it to a group of my friends.
Yeah.
And these are broad-minded people, very progressive, and some of them were hostile.
Hostile, yeah.
That must have been so hard to hear.
Well, it was really hard. In fact, friends, it was hard for friends. You were my friend, and you were one of the few exceptions. It was really wonderful. And family. So, I mean, I thought, this is what going mad is, You have an idea and you say it's going to save the world, and everybody, gets mad at you and wonders what's wrong with you. Anyway, but it required a constitutional amendment, but the key piece, what we're needing in the Constitution, it doesn't actually change the Constitution in any way.
No?
It looks innocuous. It really doesn't do anything. All it does is adds the missing piece that we need for this whole thing to really start working.
And what is that piece?
The piece is a we the people. How do we have a we the people?
Well, we have a voting process.
Yes, well, you're playing a little bit of a devil's advocate, I know. But yes, people say that we have a voting process. Yeah, well, voting is just me as an individual, you as an individual. We putting in our votes, and we get to him or usually, or him or her, get elected, and then they're trapped within this system actually. And so they can't make the kinds of changes that they need, even when they go with the best intentions to Washington. It's really a system that they're embedded in, that we're embedded in. Everybody's embedded in the system. And how do we call time out and come together and say, well, is this kind of what we want to be doing? Is this how we want to proceed collectively? How do we make choices? So
you're suggesting that we have this system, but there's something that's not allowing the system to work the way it's supposed to.
Well, yeah, really the system, any system you set up 200 years ago is going to be a little out of date today. And we have, part of the system is to have an amendment process, but it's very limited. You can't really, and you're always stuck with the Constitution being in charge. There's no we the people. And the founders assumed there would be a we the people. They assumed that, they'd have another constitutional convention and another one, and they just assumed there would be more constitutional conventions and that there would be this ongoing we the people that would be really in charge. And it never dawned on them that the Constitution would just stay in charge and that you and I would get born into that system thinking it was life. That forgetting that we are actually a people here that should be in charge of the Constitution, we the people. So how do we get that we the people? Well, this amendment, that's all it does, and it's very simple. It just, you randomly select. In my book I thought once a year, but now once every 4 months, say, there's a random selection of 12 people.
From what population?
Voter registration roll.
Okay. Over the country?
Over the country.
Uh-huh.
Voter registration roll. And you also should do it for the state of Washington and certainly California, because they're going to go off a cliff here. Yeah, the state of
So in other words, this same process could be done statewide?
It's totally scalable.
Local?
Locally, absolutely. The county, I've been working on our county for a long time.
But the amendment has to do with national.
The amendment has to do with national, and the thing about the amendment is that is the ultimate system. Because if you do it just in the county and just in the state, you haven't changed the paradigm of how we collectively think and talk and work together. So you're still with this box that's in charge. So how do we actually remember that we're in charge? And that really requires a national, and it really should be a constitutional amendment. So I thought that, but the constitutional amendment just absolutely turned people off. So I thought, well, maybe how do we do these experiments to show
let me
the
ask,
importance?
let me ask you this. Now, when did you publish your book, Society's Breakthrough?
2002.
2002, that's 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And in that book, you presented a constitutional amendment
Yes.
to establish a wisdom council.
Yes.
And we don't have one now. So you didn't get a lot of support.
I thought it would. I didn't get a lot of support. Yeah.
So
But-
what have we learned about wisdom councils in the meantime?
Well, we've learned a lot. One is the main thing is they work. It works. We've done it in companies. We've done it in schools. We've done experiments. I shouldn't say we've done it. We've done experiments in schools, in companies, in cities, in the country, in the state of Vorarlberg, in the country of Austria, has it going like in 5 or 6 cities right now. And there's when's the last government agency you know of that went to their governor and asked for a pay cut because they thought this idea was so important they need to get it into cities outside of their jurisdiction?
The answer is never.
So anyway, that's what's happening with the 7-person department
Can
in
you
Austria.
give me, just describe one of these experiments? And you said it was successful. So in what happened and how was it successful?
Okay, well, I'll describe the first one we did. And it was in the Rogue Valley of Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
And we randomly selected, we were aiming for 12. I think we randomly selected 17 and 7 walked in the door.
Uh-huh.
But it's harder because it was just us saying, "Hey, would you come give up your weekend?" It wasn't.
So you got you and your wife and
a
few
few
other people.
It wasn't the
doing this.
mayor. Or the county commissioners or anything. We didn't have an official backing. It was just some citizens in the community of Ashland and Medford that wanted to try it.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, we did it with just the 7, and they came up with, and we had about 100 people show up for the community meeting when they presented their unanimous views.
Uh-huh.
And it was really, we had TV cameras. We were really fortunate. We had TV cameras, a guy, and there's a video of it. There's a documentary on the web that you can watch called Democracy in America, created by Joseph McCormick, who later went on to found Reuniting America. But in this process, the group presented their conclusions, which I won't even get into right now because the audience of 100 basically got so excited about the process. They said, "My gosh, this is how we should be doing democracy." And we really are in charge, aren't we? And they went and continued. We only did one experiment, and they continued to change the charter of the town of Ashland, Oregon. They continued to meet and be excited about being empowered. So there was a result. It didn't have anything to do with our one-time event of the Wisdom Council, but the Wisdom Council should, of course, be ongoing.
Well, let me just interject that I've seen the video of that particular group that did the Wisdom Council should be ongoing. So this was a one-time thing you did.
One-time thing.
And I've seen a video of the report of that group. And it's really illuminating. Because in this group,
Yeah.
you've got several people that are obviously successful professional people. You've got some blue-collar people that are, and you've got an unemployed person, and you've got a mentally impaired person.
Yeah.
And they present what they came up with, what they recommend. But and I don't remember what they recommended, but what I'll never forget is the enthusiasm which they, as a group,
Yeah.
presented those statements.
Yes.
They were united. It was just exciting to see.
It was exciting to see. And what they said was, they chose the issue. The Wisdom Council chooses the issue. They're random, and they're unanimous. Those three features make that a legitimate symbol of we the people. Nobody gave them the issue, they chose it.
So they're not expected to be a significant random sample,
No.
statistically from the population.
Right.
Uh-huh.
They're just a symbol. But they're a legitimate symbol because they chose the issue. They're random, purely random, as much as we can make it, and they're unanimous. And they spoke with one voice. And basically what they said in the main were simplistic things, but it was like, hey, we're educating our children. We're not educating our children. Our priorities are crazy. Why aren't we educating our children? Why are we putting our priorities here? And why aren't we holding our legislators responsible? I mean, it was kind of that sense. But it wasn't with a whine. It was with a, like I'm making, and it was just kind of a, this is what we need to do.
Right.
This is what we need to do.
Yes, I agree.
And the whole audience was saying, yes, this is what we need to do. And we all know this. And everybody kind of, when they speak unanimously into the group basically turns their chairs and they talk. And they say, yeah, of course we need to do that. It's the whole room, the whole populace, the whole we the people, all of us saying, yes, well, of course we need to do that. And then you randomly select the next time. And if people can stay aware of what the last group did, then it moves forward. Mm-hmm. And it's just a conversation that keeps going that over time articulates what everybody, the articulations are what pretty much most all of us feel. And
one thing I noticed in watching the presentation of that Wisdom Council group is that at no point would you have said that this person has a hidden agenda or this person is trying to, get a certain political slant to things.
Yeah.
These people were speaking from the heart.
Absolutely.
All of them.
And it's a big story, but we had a guy who actually tried to sabotage it halfway through. And he came around. I mean, it was an exhilarating win for everybody and the audience but so I thought, of course, it was going to take off like wildfire, and what we really learned is that I'm not sure that we really need, the amendment isn't the critical piece, that the quality of talking is the critical piece. Mm-hmm. So the quality of talking is this quality that we call choice creating. It's resonant. And in other words, the heart of democracy ought to be, it isn't really dialogue. Mm-hmm. It isn't really deliberation. It isn't rational debate, which is what the founders thought. It's really a quality of conversation where we're all trying to figure out what's best for everybody, facing these important issues, the really important tough ones, and trying to be creative and figure out what's best for everybody, that we're all excited about it. Mm-hmm. And when people engage in that way and present it to an audience and tell them kind of the story of what they got to, that was another thing we learned, telling the story is important. And the whole audience says, yeah, I think so too. So it's like if we could do that, just get it going in an ongoing way, then maybe we could have everybody be paying attention without the amendment.
Yeah.
But even on a national basis. But it turns out that it's harder than that, and the amendment would be the fast-track way to get that to happen, and it makes it really legitimate. Now you've got a real legitimate symbol of we the people.
Well, Jim, let me ask you this. Now, I admit, I know a lot more about this than
Yeah.
the question might indicate. But, okay, so you've got a group of, what, 12 people?
Yes, 12
Okay,
people.
12 people taken randomly from the country.
Yes,
Our country is diverse.
yes.
So wouldn't it be better to have representatives of different
Yeah,
groups, like make sure you have an African American and make sure you have a Hispanic, make sure you have a certain number of women and men.
yeah.
For
That's
balance,
a really,
isn't that a good, what's wrong with that?
it's a really common question, actually. But you don't get the quality of choice creating when anybody's representing or feels like they're representing.
Why is that?
Because choice creating, you need to be authentic. You just need to be speaking for yourself as a person. So that's a critical factor. The other, we need just normal people talking authentically and symbolize. And when they do this, it's a different ball game. We're not in the old political game where we have to have that representation. We're trying to include the blacks even if they don't happen to be in the group. We're trying to include, if we got all women, we're still trying to include the men. It's not that political win-lose conversation that we're after.
So it's really, the key thing you're saying is that it's important that if I'm there,
Yeah.
I'm speaking for myself.
For yourself, from the heart, authentically. And the other thing, of course, is that it's an ongoing process. You're randomly selecting 12, and then 4 months later another 12, and another 12. And you get people in the right percentages
Over time. I see.
Yeah. And they don't have any power. We're not giving them any power. They just say something, and then if you're the one, person of a lost tribe that didn't get represented, you have to agree too. I mean,
Or not.
or not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, no, I don't think that's right. Well, you're in the conversation. We want everybody in the conversation. So it's a different animal than our current political conversation.
I can see why you find it difficult to get people to get excited about that idea, to be warm to it, because most of us don't have that experience in our history.
Yes. Well, this is a timeout. So we've got a system. We're in the system. It's like a game. It's like we're playing basketball or something, and we're being competitive, which is the way the founders set it up. Here's the rules. Go compete in the judicial area, the economics and politics. Everything's this competition, which means that you're not being a steward. We were just talking about stewardship. You're competing to win. You're not worried about the planet.
And you're counting on whatever the system in which you're working, the system, the cumulative actions people take within that system are supposed to work for the
whole
general good.
Right. But the system is 220 years old or more. So it doesn't. It doesn't. It's built for competition. So how do we fix it?
Well, first of all, how does that what's going on today in society that needs fixing?
Well,
what's an illustration?
Just one example is that we will trash the planet. In other words, you find a person walking around, and that person has a job somewhere, and they want to market to you more stuff than you really want to buy, and they want to build more stuff, and they want to take more resources. They want to maximize their self-interest, or the company's self-interest. The profits is the bottom line. That is the bottom line. So with everybody doing that, they don't think that way. They want to be stewards. They want to protect for the environment. They want to protect and serve their grandchildren. But they can't because they're embedded in a system that requires them to get a job and earn a living when you had employment, it used to serve life. Now you have employment, and half the time it's not serving life. It's malemployment. So we don't have the ability to be in a system that we can just trust the system. And of course, that's what we have, is we have people bowing to the Constitution, bowing to the founders as though they were perfect. The founders didn't think they were perfect.
But you don't think we need to change the Constitution other than adding
We the
something?
people. Adding a we the people. In other words, we need some time out where we come together and reflect about how this is all working. And we need a way to formulate an action plan of what we want to do, what we really want and what we want to do. And the amendment is simply a random selection every 4 months of these people who make a statement, and then they stimulate that timeout conversation where we're all talking and where we have a way to make these new conclusions together.
So you're saying are you saying that a successful outcome of a wisdom council is not so much their conclusions, but the broader conversation about those solutions that is engendered?
Yes, it's both, actually. We will have conclusions, we will take actions, but once we all know what our priorities are, the normal systems will take care of it. Congress is smart. They're going to run out in the front and they're going to say, I've been leading this way all along, and they're going to make it happen. Once they realize everybody knows what we want, and B, everybody knows that everybody knows that that's what we want. And then that's the way people are going to vote, that's the way people are going to buy, and so companies and Congress and whatever will need to respond. They will respond to that. Plus, even without us, I mean, every 4 months the situation will have changed by the time we meet. That's the aim.
So this would be like 3 times a year.
3 times. That's my sense right now.
Yeah.
I have it in the book as once a year, but.
And my guess is, as the Wisdom Council goes on, adjustments might need to be made as you learn more about it.
Absolutely. But I would put it on one page. I'm going to take it to this mock constitutional convention in Louisville, Kentucky.
And so what's the idea of this convention?
Well, we have to stop, because we're out of time, but I don't know. I think what it is other people have their constitutional amendments, and so they're creating an environment that they'll be able to present their ideas. That's my guess.
Okay, it's an interchange of ideas, but are in this vein.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, they're in the vein usually of term limits or, some kind of coercive, repealing this, some.
But they are
14th
touching
Amendment or
the untouchable nerve of tweaking the Constitution.
tweaking the Constitution.
Yeah.
And this actually doesn't tweak it. It just
No.
adds something that creates the We the People.
End of story.
Okay. Don Miller is my good buddy from Richmond, Virginia. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure.
It was fun.
Always.